Okay, this is the fourth part of our discussion, and we are now in the electrolytes. So, let me remind everybody that you have to review the RAAS system, renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, because I understood that it was emphasized enough during the reporting and during my lecture sa una. So, yeah, wa na nako siya gi-appeal diri. So, let's go right away uh, to the discussions of electrolytes. Okay, so you know that electrolytes are composed of the major minerals. They are usually in the form of cation or anion. So cation is positively charged and anion is negatively charged. And why are they important? Aside sa ilahang role in nerve transmission, because they provide bioelectricity to us that makes nerve impulse transmission possible. They also act as regulators of body pH. So they are in charge with acid-base balance. Okay. So the body has to maintain a very narrow range of body pH. So it's between 7.35 to 7.45. So anything below 7.35 uh, can make the body no experience acidosis, which is a very life-threatening situation. And in almost ICU cases no naagyod na yung mga inani nga disorders, labi na kaning acidosis. So again, this happens when the body pH um drops no below 7.34 at 7.35 rather. If mula pa sad ang body pH beyond 7.45, then what would happen is alkalosis. So yeah, so imagine that very narrow range of body of when you say body pH, it refers to the pH in the plasma or pH of the blood. So nganong kinahanglan i-maintain ni siya nga narrow nga range, because many important molecules in the body like our body proteins would not function properly if mo below siya or mo above ani nga range. Okay, so the acid base balance in the body is heavily dependent with hydrogen ions, such as if hydrogen ions exceed um, in their levels in the blood, then that would most likely result to acidosis. But if very inadequate or very deficient sa ang body of hydrogen ions, then that would definitely lead to alkalosis. Okay, so we can say that these hydrogen ions make our blood acidic. Okay, so that's to put that in simpler terms. So, most hydrogen ions originate as metabolic byproducts, although they can also enter the body via ingested foods. So, later on, when we discuss metabolism, you will realize this one, no, that especially in the ETC, um, kaning H plus is actually generated from the metabolism of foods. Okay, so makakreate ta og daghan nga hydrogen ions basically from the foods that we eat. Okay, and sometimes we can also like influence no the blood pH through an excess of intake of an ions. So examples of an ions are chloride, phosphate, and sulfite or sulfur. Yeah, so these anions can actually decrease the pH, and therefore kaning cations more on sa kuan sila no sa increase body pH. So anions decrease body pH and cations increase the body pH. So if dako kayo ang anions, ang level sa anions sa blood, then that would definitely result to acidosis. Okay, that's why an excess of fluoride can lead to acidosis. Okay, so an ion gap is actually calculated through reducing the total amount of an ion minus the total amount of cations. So if taas kaayo ang levels and ions compared to cations, then we would have this increase in in an ion gap, which is a sign of impending acidosis. Another way to for the diet to influence blood plasma pH is through a chronic intake of animal foods. Animal foods are, of course, rich in proteins and in turn rich in sulfur containing amino acids like cysteine and methionine. When we metabolize the sulfur containing amino acids, we actually release sulfur. And sulfur is an anion, and it decreases the body pH. So it can influence the body pH by decreasing it. Okay, but don't worry, these influences by the diet can actually be easily buffered by the body. Okay? So, naay mechanism ang body, especially sa mga healthy individuals, they have enough mechanism to buffer these disturbances in body pH. So, therefore, kung magkaon ta aning mga so-called acidifying foods, dili ra na siya totally good. Dili ra gyud na siya easily nga mag-turn into acidosis or alkalosis because it's easily treated by the body's buffer systems. So thanks to these buffer systems, ma-maintain nato ato ang body pH into that narrow range 7.35 to 7.45. So how do we define a buffer? So a chemical buffer is a system of one or two molecules that acts to resist changes in pH by binding H plus when the pH drops or releasing H plus when the pH rises. So if mo accumulate na gani ang H plus or hydrogen ion sa plasma, then kinahanglan na i-bind with another molecule para ma-neutralize kaning H plus and mo increase ang blood pH. Okay? Um, if mula pa sad ang body pH beyond 7.45, then padulungay na alkalosis. So ang ginahimo is i i-break down ang kaninga compound para makarelease tag hydrogen atoms or hydrogen protons that would make the pH decrease and normalize. So actually diri ang ato ang foundation, no? It really is heavily dependent with the concentration of H plus. So chemical buffer systems operate in the blood and in the cell. So later I'll provide you examples of how these buffer systems operate in these compartments. There are also like two organ systems that are involved with the acid base balance. So this is where you will realize the functions of these organ systems. You have learned this already from your anafino that these particular organs are involved in acid base balance, and now you will encounter how these systems work in the molecular level. So the lungs actually respond uh, through changes in respiration. So the lungs can actually like help maintain this body pH by either increasing or decreasing the respiration rate. And the kidneys can respond by promoting the production of bicarbonate or the promotion of the excretion of bicarbonate, which would influence the body pH. And aside from this organ system, the skeletal system has also this job, no, because the skeletal system can really can also serve as buffer. So later I'll explain the role of skeletal system in that. Okay, so the main buffer system in the body is called the bicarbonate carbonic acid buffer system. So this one really lies on this equation, no? Para masabtan ninyo kani ato ang tan-awon. Okay, sorry. Ah, kani um when carbon dioxide combines with water, um, it would result to carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is a weak acid, so it doesn't affect the body pH much. But when the carbonic acid is dissociated or is broken down to yield hydrogen and bicarbonates, then this is the time nga pwede maapektuhan sa carbonic acid ang body pH. Because by dissociating, si H plus ma-release, and you know that H plus can decrease the body pH, and kaning bicarbonates is actually um, basic. Okay, so kaning si bicarbonates iyahang i-increase ang body pH or i-alkalize niya ang body pH. Okay, so inani ang reaction sa body, and later na involvement si zinc ani, and you will come to appreciate it later. um the buffering capacity of this reaction arises from the fact that either added protons or added hydroxide ions will be neutralized by corresponding shifts in the equilibrium. So the bicarbonate can be formed both from the acidification of bicarbonate and from the reaction of dissolved carbon dioxide with water. So as what I've said ganina, if ang carbon dioxide mag-form with water, it would mag-bind with water, it would result to bicarbonate. To carbonic acid. And aha man diri karon mo function si lungs ug si kidneys. Si lungs iyahang i-control ang rate sa retention and excretion sa carbon dioxide. Of course, kay the major pathway of entrance and exit of carbon dioxide is through the respiratory system. Okay, so in order for the carbonic acid to form, kinahanglan og carbon dioxide. So the respiratory system can actually influence the production of carbonic acid, and thus can influence the body pH. What about the role of kidneys? Si kidneys, iyahang ginakontrol ang bicarbonate. Kay si kidneys, diha ma-produce ang bicarbonate. Okay? And aside from that, si kidneys pod ang mag-excrete sa bicarbonate. Okay? So, um, remember that bicarbonate is alkaline. So, if naay acidosis guys, iyahang retain, iyahang i-conserve si bicarbonate so that mutaas ang blood pH, and manormalize ang blood pH kung naay acidosis. Pero kung naay alkalosis, iyahan na i-promote ang excretion para mawala ang alkaline and mo-normalize si body pH. Nakuha? So, inyoha lang nga timan-an nga si H plus maunang gapa acid, si bicarbonate maunang gapa alkaline. So, when it comes to the control of the bicarbonate, it's the job of the kidneys. Okay? So, mauna atong hunahunaan para mas masabtan nato. Okay? Yeah. So, that's the bicarbonate carbonic acid buffer. Okay? So, kung naay acidosis, then ang ang pathway no sa body is makaproduce ta og carbonic acid. Kay i-bind ni bicarbonate si H+, so mogamay ang H+ concentration sa plasma kay ma-bind man siya ni bicarbonate and ma-turn siya into carbonic acid. Okay, so the production of carbonic acid is favored when there is acidosis. But when there is alkalosis, then um, the 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 pathway would be carbonic acid will be degraded to H plus and and bicarbonate, and sa H plus i-release ra na siya merely to plasma, and bicarbonates are removed by the kidneys. So para mutaas ang mugamay ang body pH and manormalize siya. Gets? So that's it. Okay, that's the main buffer. But what about the other buffer systems that would help the body also to control this body pH? We also have this phosphate buffer system. So this operates only in the urine. So therefore, this operates only in the kidneys and the intracellular fluid, similar to the bicarbonate buffer system. So we have these two compounds that play a key role in this buffer system. So we have sodium dihydrogen phosphate and monohydrogen phosphate. So the filtered dihydrogen phosphate, may bawaan nato nga dihydrogen phosphate kay naay two two nga valence, no, so dihydrogen eh. So when the dihydrogen form of phosphate reacts with H plus, which is the one that acidifies the body, no, it would result to mono monohydrogen phosphate. Okay, so once the filtered dihydrogen phosphate reacts with hydrogen to form the monohydrogen phosphate form, um, it can actually turn into uh, into its monohydrogen phosphate, thereby reducing the amount of hydrogen ions from the plasma. So this is one way of the kidneys, no, to bind extra hydrogen atoms to solve acidosis, or to in an effort, no, to normalize the body pH. Okay, so it's the way of the kidneys to, to excrete these excess hydrogen atoms in the form of monohydrogen phosphate, and this monohydrogen phosphate is excreted through the urine. So this is the phosphate buffer system. Next is the RBC and chloride buffer systems. So as you can see here, this is the red blood cell, and this is the plasma galing tunga sa red blood cell, and then the tissue cells. So the RBC has actually the capacity uh, to remove extra hydrogen atoms or extra bicarbonates as well. Okay, so in red blood cells, as HB releases oxygen to tissues, it can react with carbon dioxide and with hydrogen ions and serve as a buffer. So the carbon dioxide in the RBC enters via diffusion from tissues and may remain dissolved or bind to hemoglobin molecule or react with water forming carbonic acid. So the latter then dissociates into hydrogen and bicarbonate. The bicarbonate is then released into the plasma in exchange for chloride in a process referred to as the chloride shift. Okay, so first, how does the red blood cell accomplish this? By first absorbing carbon dioxide, and once the carbon dioxide is inside the red blood cell, this carbon dioxide then reacts with water to form carbonic acid, di ba? As what I have explained kanina. And the red blood cell has the capacity to dissociate the components of this carbonic acid back to or into the hydrogen atom and bicarbonates. Okay, and this and if the blood plasma needs extra bicarbonates para mo increase ang pH, then the red blood cell has the capacity to release this bicarbonate out to the plasma, thereby increasing and normalizing the or buffering the body pH. Diba? So, this happens no when there is acidosis para mo increase ang body pH. Okay? And there is another player here. Um, this is called chloride shift. and in exchange of the bicarbonate that is released out of the red blood cell, chloride is absorbed inside. Okay, so you can actually observe this also, no, in the transport of chloride um, into the enterocytes in the apical membrane of the enterocytes, because para maabsorb ang chloride, no, si bicarbonate is um, exchange. So musulod si chloride sa enterocytes, then in exchange mugawa si bicarbonate from the enterocyte to the intestinal lumen. So that is also how chloride is absorbed. So it's similar in this mechanism. So as you can see, these systems can also, contribute to the buffering of the body pH. Okay. So we also have potassium buffer system. So very simple. Potassium is excreted out in exchange of H plus ions in when there is acidosis. So when there is a decreased body pH, then kinahanglan i-bind or kinahanglan i-remove si hydrogen ions from the blood. So ang himuon is si cells um, pwede niya i-gather or i-absorb or i-remove ang hydrogen ions from the blood plasma, pasulod niya sa iyahang cell, and in exchange, magpagawa siya og potassium. Okay? So may tabo na if na acidosis. But if na alkalosis, then kinahanglan og extra hydrogen nga dapat present sa blood plasma. So ang himuon is bali. Ipagawas ni cell si hydrogen ions in exchange sa potassium nga dapat mosulod. Okay? So in that way, no, when there is either acidosis or alkalosis, this buffer system can work. Okay? We also have okay, diri na nato i-discuss, no, ang role ni respiratory system as well as ni urinary system. So carbon dioxide from cellular metabolism enters erythrocytes and is converted to bicarbonate ions for transport in the plasma. Mo ni atong mo nitong ganina katong role sa RBC. When hypercapnia occurs, blood pH drops. Okay, hypercapnia means increased carbon dioxide levels in the blood. So, when this happens, the blood pH drops because si carbon dioxide mo react man with water to form carbonic acid. And when there is carbonic acid, usually mag-dissociate yun na siya into hydrogen ions. So, it would lead to accumulation of hydrogen ions and dropping of blood pH, di ba? So when this happens, the respiratory center in the medulla oblongata is activated, and when this is activated, then the medulla oblongata would try to increase the rate and depth of breathing. Okay? So, mo increase si um, unsa ni mo increase si respiration rate. So para mo daghan ang carbon dioxide nga ipagawas. So therefore mugamay ang carbon dioxide levels, and therefore pwede nga mo taas ang body pH, di ba? So this would lead to hyperventilation. So the hyperventilation that would happen here is compensatory. That means it's meant to solve the problem in the first place, which is hypercapnia. Okay? In contrast, if mutaas si blood pH, the respiratory center is depressed, allowing carbon dioxide to accumulate in the blood, lowering the pH. So, if mutaas sad, if mag-alkalosis sad, then mugamay ang respiration rate. So, that would lead to hypoventilation, okay, decreased breathing, and therefore dili kayo ma-unload si carbon dioxide, dili kayo magpagawas, so ma-retain si carbon dioxide, and therefore mo taas ang blood pH. Ay, mo taas mo lower ang blood pH. Okay, mo daghan man ang uh, H plus ions nga ma-form. Di ba? So this is how the lungs do its job. And this usually happens in healthy individuals. If ang individual na ay sakit sa lungs, that would lead to either hypercapnia or hypocapnia, then lahi na sad nga pamaagi ang himuon sa body para ma-solve na siya, since daot naman ang lungs, so unsaon niya pag pag-compensate ana nga daot naman ang lungs. So na another organ system that would help solve that, and that is the renal involvement or the kidneys. So um, only the kidneys can read the body of acids generated by cellular metabolism, while also regulating blood levels of alkaline substances and renewing chemical buffer components. And it's the kidneys that, again, uh, are involved in the reabsorption of bicarbonate or the production of bicarbonate if naay acidosis. So, yeah, mao nang purpose ni kidneys po. Okay? Kung naay acidosis, then ang mahitabo is kinahanglan niya mo increase, kinahanglan niya i-promote ang excretion of extra acids. Okay? Or pwede niya nga i-reabsorb, mag-reabsorb siya as much bicarbonate as possible, or mag-produce siya bag-o nga bicarbonate para ma-treat ang acidosis. Okay? If there is alkalosis, then the kidneys would be forced no, to retain acids and to not excrete them para para mo baba ang body pH. Okay? There is also another organ system that is involved in the uh, pH regulation, and that is the skeletal system, the bones specifically. So the bones would do its job primarily due to the acidifying effects of high animal protein diet, since na-explain ako ganina no nga taas sa sulfur containing amino acids ang animal proteins, and maka release na siya og sulfates which are acidic. Okay? So what would the bones do? It would promote the breakdown of bones through increasing the osteoclast activity. Remember, osteoclasts are the bone breaking cells. So para mo i-release niya si calcium, and si calcium manggod, since it's a positively charged ion, it's a cation, so therefore it can alkalinize, it can increase the body pH, so it can buffer the sulfites that are coming from the metabolic degradation of animal proteins. So, many studies have shown that chronic intake of diet that is high in animal proteins can lead to osteoporosis later on. Okay? So, a diet high in animal foods is a risk factor for osteoporosis. Why? Because sa katong akong gi-explain. Okay? So, over time manggod kay pwede mahimong porous ang bones, kay sigig ka breakdown tungod lagi sa iyahang pag-buffer sa mga sulfur nga gikan sa diet high in animal foods. Okay? So, maunang involvement ni bones sa acid pH balance. Okay? What about if naay sakit na ang individual that would disturb the acid-base balance? So, but first no, naay mga terms na kinahanglan nato i-remember. We have respiratory acidosis, which is caused by rising carbon dioxide, plasma carbon dioxide levels. Okay, and this is usually due to pulmonary obstruction. That means dili kaayo makaginhawa na ang tao, no, since na ay mga obstruction sa lungs, such as in the case of COPD or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which can be further categorized into three. We have bronchitis, asthma, and emphysema. Okay, the latter, which is caused by smoking. Okay. So, since di naman kaayo kaginhawa ang patient, so dili na niya ma-unload kaayo ang carbon dioxide, that would lead to accumulation of carbon dioxide and consequent decrease in body pH. So, if the origin of the acidosis is tungod sa obstruction sa lungs, then definitely that's respiratory acidosis. But what is the other kind of acidosis? It's called metabolic acidosis, and this is characterized by low blood pH and bicarbonate levels, and is due to excessive loss of bicarbonate ions or ingestion of too much alcohol. So kani diri na na involvement si kidneys. This would happen, no, when there is or if the patient has kidney failure, so dili na dili na kayo maka-excrete ang patient og extra acids. So therefore, mo accumulate lang acid sa blood plasma, leading to metabolic acidosis. So, if na kidney failure, then definitely it's not respiratory acidosis, it's metabolic acidosis. So, respiratory, diseases sa lungs. Metabolic acidosis, diseases sa kidneys. The other causes of metabolic acidosis other than problems in the kidneys are too much ingestion of alcohol, which can lead to alcoholic acidosis, too much ingestion of or if the patient has diabetes type 1, which can lead to diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a very life threatening condition. Lactic acidosis can also occur, no, from both from excessive intake of of alcohol or deficiency in thiamine. Okay, later ako na siya explain later, no, nganong thiamine deficiency can lead to lactic acidosis. Okay? Or too much ingestion of drugs that can acidify the blood plasma. Okay? So what about the two types of alkalosis? We have respiratory also and metabolic. So from respiratory alkalosis, if ang respiratory man, so if na ay something wrong pud sa sa what's this sa lungs, that would result in um, excessive unloading of carbon dioxide. Okay, so when carbon dioxide is eliminated from the body faster than it is produced, such as during hyperventilation. So this would happen if kani usually sa COVID-19 patients ni siya nga critically ill, pwede nga mag-hyperventilate ang patient. So, once mag-hyperventilate ang patient, daghan kaayo nga carbon dioxide ang ma-remove and mugamay ang acid sa lawas, which can lead to alkalosis. Okay? So, kanang nagka-ARDS nga patient. ARDS means acute respiratory distress syndrome, which usually happens in critically ill COVID-19 patients. Okay? If ang alkalosis is caused by kidney failure also, and etiologies other than problems in the lungs are called metabolic alkalosis. So indicated by rising blood pH and bicarbonate levels, and is the result of vomiting or excessive base intake. Okay. So kung naay respiratory acidosis, guys, or alkalosis, dili na ni maka-function ang ang lungs kay naay something wrong sa lungs nga nung nagka-acidosis alkalosis. So what would happen is ang kidneys ang mag-take over sa pag-remove sa or si kidneys ang mag-take over no sa pag treat sa imbalance. Kay di naman maka-function ang lungs kay naalagi daot. So si kidneys na mag-take over. So what would happen is, for example, kung may respiratory acidosis, um, i-decrease, what's this? Si kidneys, iyahang i-remove, iyahang i-retain ang bicarbonates. So para mutaas si blood pH. Okay? Kung naay respiratory alkalosis, so ang himuon ni kidneys is iyang excrete ang extra bicarbonates. So what about if damage ang kidneys? So dili na siya maka-perform sa iyang function, so therefore mag-take over pud si respiratory system. So for example, if na metabolic acidosis due to kidney failure, i-remove ni ni lungs ang extra carbon dioxide para mugamay pud ang carbonic acid, so mugamay ang H+. Okay? So the same kung naay metabolic alkalosis, si lungs gyapon ang treat ana. So ang tawag ana is compensatory mechanisms. Okay? So you have to know this because when you are exposed or when you will be exposed to hospitals later on, part man ni siya sa mga routine biochemical labs that you have to interpret, that you have to correlate with the patient's condition. So para masabtan ninyo nganong nagka-alkalosis or acidosis ang patient. Okay? So, yeah. So I hope it's crystal clear to you. Okay? Now, let's proceed to the discussion on fat-soluble vitamins. Okay. Dili na nako i-discuss katong mga other parts sa each vitamin no kay nakahimo naman kog summary ani, and definitely naka-learn na mo daghan sa reporters og sa katong basic nutrition pa lang, di ba? So let's proceed to the topics that I think nagkulang og emphasis okay during reporting. So first is kaning utilization of vitamin A. So after absorption sa vitamin A, mauna dayon ning mahitabo sa ilaha. So remember that retinoic acid is the vitamer of vitamin A that is involved in gene expression. Si retinal sa mata, and si retinol maunang circulating form ni vitamin A. Okay, that means mauna ang predominant nga vitamin A form sa blood. Okay? So to interconvert retinol to retinal and vice versa, you would need retinol dehydrogenase. If you want to interconvert retinal to retinoic acid and vice versa, then it's catalyzed by the enzyme retinal dehydrogenase. Okay? Okay, let's first discuss the involvement of vitamin A as retinal, which is in charge with vision. Okay, this is you will realize, guys, or this is where you will appreciate that without vitamin A, we really cannot see at all. It's actually the vitamin A that allows the processing of visual information padulong sa brain para ma-interpret ni brain kung sa image nga nakita nimo, and therefore would allow you to see things. Di ba? So maunang very important nga kuan ani no nga learning diri sa kaning nga topic, nga if walay vitamin A, then vision is not possible. Okay? So para mas ma-detail na no, let's discuss this. Okay. So of course we can easily see things in broad light, like in daytime, diba? Kay abundant man ang photons. Photons are the particles of light, di ba? And mo na ang reason nga nung naay light, di ba? Mo nang makakita ta. Oo, okay. Tungod ang photons. So abundant ang photons sa environment. And kanang photons, of course, i-release na ni sun, di ba? Pero kung wala na si sun, di ba, magabiin na, so wala na kayo photon, so maunang ngit-ngit na. And makakita ba ta sa ngit-ngit? If it's total darkness, dili. But when there is low concentration of photons, such as if naay moon, no, pero wala kayo'y suga, later on, makakita ta, di ba? Although, sige, maghatag ko a specific example. For example, nag-brown out, di ba? First few minutes of kanang after brown out, di yun kakakita. Pero mapansin na nimo nga after a few minutes, medyo gaka-develop imong vision. Like makit-an nimo ang, for example, ang imuhang table, makit-an nimo ang dimension niya, makit-an nimo ang height niya, mag-gauge nimo iyang shape. Kaya makit-an man nimo ang outline, pero dili lang nimo makit-an ang color because it's black and white. But nevertheless, you can see things, pero black and white lang. So, that is called night vision. Okay? Black and white nga vision. Although dili siya colored, but makakita ta. And thanks to vitamin A, we we have night vision. Okay? We can see things in dim light. Okay? And that is what we will discuss here. Nganong or unsay biochemical basis sa night vision. Okay? So, to understand that, let's discuss the visual cycle that is happening in the rod cells. Di ba naatay cone cells and rod cells mao nang inyong na learn sa inyong ANAFE. Si rod cells mao nang responsible sa night vision, sa vision during dim light. Okay? Then, si cone cells maunang responsible for color vision or daytime vision. So, kaning mga cone cells allow us to see things in color. Okay? So, both the rod and cone cells utilize vitamin A. Okay? So, let's discuss kaning vision sa dim light. Okay? Or the rod visual cycle. So, uh, we can call it simply as rods, no, para di kaya siya mouthful. So it's called the dark photoreceptors. So these cells will be activated in dim light. Okay, so for example kana naisuga, okay, so makakita tag color kung naisuga kay abundant man ang photons, pero suddenly nag brown out, then di na dayon kakakita for a few minutes. Okay? Because mauna nga time guys nga ang mga cone cells nato mo, 'di ba ang cone cells man ang predominant kay makita tag color kung naisuga. But kung mag-brown out kaning mga cone cells nato mapalong na sila, ma-turn off na sila. And gradually ma-activate si rod cells para makakita ta during dim light because cone cells cannot see things in dim light. Kinahanglan si rod cells ma-activate. In daylight pud guys, in broad daylight, um deactivated pud si rod cells. Like palong off, naka-turn off si rod cells, then ang naka-on si cone cells. Pero during dim light, so bali na si rod cells na ang naka-on and naka-off na si cone cells. So actually kanang time nga kanang nag-brown out bitaw tapos kanang makakita na ta medyo maunang time nga kinahanglan nga ma-off ang tanang cone cells and ma-on ang mga rod cells. Okay? So thanks to these rod cells makakita ta in dim light. Okay. So the rod cells, okay, unsay naa di sa rod cells nganong possible ni siya? It's because the rod cells store rhodopsin. Okay? So Okay. Okay. So, rhodopsin is a kind of opsin. It's opsin is a protein. So when opsin combines with 11-cis retinal, which is a metabolite of retinal, okay, opsin plus 11-cis retinal, as you can see here, will form rhodopsin. So this is the one that absorbs light. This is the active form of the opsin. So para ma-activate si opsin and 11-cis retinal, kinahanglan sila mo combine together to form rhodopsin. And when rhodopsin is formed, then ready na ang rod cells to absorb photons, to absorb light para to allow vision. Okay, so kaning rhodopsin na ani siya sa sulod sa rod cells. So, there is another type of cell here. Okay, aside from the rod cells, we have the retinal pigment epithelium or the RPE, where the other retinoids are stored, and this is where 11-cis retinal is regenerated. So only 11-cis retinal and no other retinoids combine with opsin to form rhodopsin. So there are no other metabolites that opsin can bind to para mahimong rhodopsin other than 11-cis retinal. Okay? So, it's very important for the 11-cis retinal to be regenerated. It's very important for us to provide 11-cis retinal to the rod cells para capable ta og vision during daylight. Okay? Okay. So, visual cycle man siya, no? That means it's a cycle. So, therefore, ang pathway nato ani is murag cycle. Okay? Yeah, ani. So, kani, di ba? Oh, cycle na siya. Okay, sige. Um, this might seem quite overwhelming ha, pero dili lang mo ka-overwhelm kay masabtan ra gyud ni siya. Okay, I will make you understand. Okay, ako man gina-explain in simpler terms. Okay. Sige. So given this, okay, very important nga masabtan nato ni para masabtan nato ang incoming statements. Okay. So this is the start of the rod visual cycle to allow us to see things in dim light. So this it starts with this. So when a photon strikes rhodopsin in a rod cell, the 11-cis retinal photoisomerizes to all trans retinal. Okay? So ah ngit-ngit siya pero nevertheless na ay photons pero gamay lang concentration. Okay? So kanang very few photons kaya na i-absorb ni rod cells. Then by the time nga ang photon ma-absorb siya, then that proton can degrade rhodopsin to 11 to opsin and all transretinal. So, due to the striking of photon to the rhodopsin, ang 11 cis retinal ma-convert into all transretinal. And di ba ingon ako ganina, kung dili lagi naka 11 cis retinal ang retinal, ang vitamin A, then dili ma-form a rhodopsin. So therefore, rhodopsin would break kay na-convert mga 11 cis retinal to transretinal. And as a result of incompatibility due to photoisomerization, the all transretinal breaks up with opsin. Okay, so na-break up ang rhodopsin due to this photon. So the breaking up of opsin from all transretinal sends neural signals to the brain which are responsible for low light vision. So by the time nga nag-break si opsin from this kind of retinal, then maunang time nga magsugod nag-send og signal ang eyes to the brain nga uy makakita na ko kay na-absorb na nako ang photon, so possible na nga ma-picture na nato ang image sa atong surrounding in dim light. Okay? So, chemical signal siya nga nahimong electrical signal because kaning mga neural signals kay uh, usually from electrical signal to chemical signal or vice versa. So in this one, chemical signal to electrical signal, then i-process na ni brain and makakita na dayon ta. Okay? So, what would happen to that all transretinal? So, after that, all transretinal is converted to all transretinol by the enzyme retinol dehydrogenase. And then all transretinol is transported to the RPE. So, the sa to? Retinal pigment epithelium. Okay? So, once in the RPE, this transretinol would then be converted to all transretinal esters by lecithin um, lecithin retinol acyltransferase, okay, or LRAT. Then the enzyme RPE65 converts, okay, um, the enzyme RPE65 then converts the retinal esters to 11-cis retinol. And finally, the enzyme retinol dehydrogenase converts 11-cis retinol to 11-cis retinal. So as you can see in the RPE, um, 11-cis retinal is regenerated. Kaya di ba na photoisomerize man to siya um, to all transretinal. So kinahanglan siya i-convert back to 11-cis retinal in the RPE. So anong kinahanglan nga sa RPE ma-regenerate ang 11-cis retinal? Because the rod cells do not have these enzymes that can convert these retinoids back to the active form, which is 11-cis retinal. Okay, so kinahanglan niya si RPE. Kay si RPE lang ang mga enzymes, kaning mga enzymes to make it possible. So, para continuous ang ato ang vision during dim light or even in daylight, no, kinahanglan nga constant sad ang regeneration. Because once nga magkulang ang supply sa 11-cis retinal, then that's the time nga dili ta makakita. And unsa gani ang first symptom sa ophthalmia or hypovitaminosis A or vitamin A deficiency? Night blindness or nyctalopia. Diba? So diri na karon mo, diri na ninyo masabtan si night blindness. So mo nang mga bata nga deficient sa vitamin A, di na sila makakita sa dim light. Mm. Kay ngano kay kulang ang 11-cis retinal nga ma-provide sa diet kay lagi deficient man sila sa vitamin A. So therefore, deficiency of vitamin A directly affects vision. Okay. So another example, kato lagi kung nag-brown out ana. Yeah. Another example di ay is kanang kuan um kuan bitaw kanang headlights sa car for example. Di ba sakit siya sa mata? Oo, kung like na biglaan ba like tan-aw ka directly sa headlight sa car or kanang di ba sakit magtan-aw directly to the sun? Ngano man na? Unsa explanation ana? Because too much light can degrade a lot of rhodopsin at the same time. So therefore, for example, kanang high intensity nga light gikan sa sun nagtan-aw ka directly sa sun. So halos tanan nga rhodopsin ana ma-breakdown all at once. And therefore wala nay 11-cis retinal nga ma-regenerate quickly. Okay? Like it would take time pa para ma-acquire nimo ang vision again, di ba? Nakatry ka ana, kana nagtry kag tan-aw sa sun and medyo blurry imong vision no for a few minutes pero mobalik ra gyapon siya sa normal. So kana murag blurry atong vision, maunang time nga daghan kaayog rhodopsin nga na breakdown. Tapos so therefore dugay ang pag-regenerate sa 11-cis retinal. So kung na-normalize na imong vision, kung ibalik na sa normal, then that's the time nga na regenerate na imong 11-cis retinal. So therefore, kung dili ma-regenerate 11 cis retinal, dili ma, dili ka maka-acquire og vision. Okay? So mo nang gitawag siya nga visual cycle. Okay? Oh. So aha to 11 cis retinal. So kani sa 11 cis retinal, mag-combine to opsin with opsin to form rhodopsin. And if na light, then rhodopsin would break down to 11 trans retinal, and ma-form siya into all trans retinal, and then para ma-convert siya balik to 11 cis retinal, kinahanglan niya participation ni RPE here, kani amo ning RPE. So, yeah, it's just a cycle. So, once ma-regenerate, ibalik na sad niya na to rod cells to combine with additional opsin to form additional rhodopsin to sustain vision. Because again, kung dili ni siya ma-regenerate, then walay rhodopsin. So, therefore, walay mo absorb sa light, then therefore, vision would not be possible. Okay? So I think that's crystal clear. I think kanang akong pag-explain is in simple terms. Okay, and nag-provide kog mga real life examples, di ba? So mo din nagkakahitabo, like that would explain a lot, di ba? Like katong akong pang cite ng mga examples. So nga nang dili ta makakita kung brown out or kung magtan-aw ta directly sa sun, okay. Di ba? Oh. So what about this one? Okay, so visual cycle gyapon siya. So katulagi. So once rhodopsin is broken down, so ang 11 cis retinal ma-convert into all trans retinal and opsin due to light. Okay? So usually during dim light, si moon ang ga-supply og photons, although low lang ang concentration kay dili ra man kayo intense ang light nga ginahatag ni moon. Okay? So that's it. Okay? So, kaning capillaries, ultimately gikan ni siya sa intestines, no? Ang blood supply ani gikan sa intestines para continually maka-provide ta og vitamin A. Okay? Because kung kulang tag vitamin A, either gikan sa atong storage or gikan sa atong food, then definitely pwede ni sila mawala. Although gina-regenerate siya, but later on pwede ni siya ma-oxidize into something else, so mugamay ra gyapon ang supply. Okay, so that's why kinahanglan nga i-replenish siya either from storage or from the diet. Okay, so ang mga bata nga kulang og vitamin A, mauna morning mahitabo magka night blindness or nyctalopia. Okay. So, this is the retina. So, naadiri ang mga rod cells, and the retinal pigment epithelium is here in between sa retina and choroid. Okay? What about what happens during daylight? So, that is coordinated by the cones or the cone cells. So, ang cone visual cycle, similar na siya sa visual cycle sa rods. Except that cones have the ability to regenerate 11 cis retinal faster. Why? Why do cones need to regenerate 11 cis retinal faster? Because mas daghan man ang photons during daylight. Okay, mas constant ang phototransduction kay everywhere na ay daghan nga concentration sa photons kay naa may light. So, unsa na lang mahitabo if dili kaya sa cones mag-regenerate faster og 11 cis retinal in the presence of high intensity light. So wala, dili ta makakita kay um daghan nga nga sani nga 11 cis retinal ang ma-form into retinoids nga that are not capable of absorbing light. Okay? There are three different types of cones. So, the red cones for longer wavelengths, green for medium and blue. Okay, green for medium wavelengths and blue for shorter wavelengths. So therefore, there are three different types of opsins. So when combined with 11-cis-retinal, yield three different iodopsins. So for color vision, dili na rhodopsin, but ang tawag na is iodopsins. So each of these iodopsins is in charge with detecting light in longer wavelengths or medium wavelengths or shorter wavelengths para makakita tag colors. Okay? So, in addition to RPE, the visual cycle for cones has Mueller cells of the inner retina that help regenerate 11-cis retinal, therefore faster recovery for constant daytime vision. So, kaning Mueller cells, addition ni siya sa RPE para mas paspas ang pag-regenerate sa 11-cis retinal. So, therefore, mas masustain na to ang vision even though in the presence of um, high amounts of light or high amounts of photons. So the all trans retinol generated in the cones are transported to the Mueller cells to be converted to 11-cis retinol. And 11-cis retinol is then transported back to the cones, and they have the ability to convert it to 11-cis retinal, which rods are not capable of. So um, another thing in the cone cells that is different from the rod cells is that the cone cells mismo ang mag-regenerate sa 11-cis retinal. So therefore, mas paspas. Okay? Kinahanglan na again kay uh, daytime vision man. Okay? So that's it. So I hope na sabtan ninyo siya. Okay? So both in black and white and color vision needs 11-cis retinal. Okay? So next is the use of vitamin A in cellular differentiation and gene expression. So, dili na as retinal, dili as retinol, but as retinoic acid. So, retinoic acid is the bioactive form of vitamin A in gene expression. So, it binds to retinoic acid receptors and retinoid X receptors to regulate gene activity. This usually is in coordination with vitamin D. So later makita ninyo no how vitamin D and A work together in gene expression. So it is involved in the differentiation of embryonic or stem cells. For instance, limb development, hindbrain development, and differentiation to motor neurons. And due to this, maunang important ang vitamin A during pregnancy. Dili pwede nga ma-deficient og vitamin A ang boros. Because that would mean if kulang ang vitamin A, then dili ni ma-develop properly. And therefore, mag-lead siya to congenital malformations. Diba? Maunang magkulang og mga fingers, for example, ang bata or wala kayo na-develop properly ang kaning mga parts sa lawas. So, yeah. So, vitamin A deficiency can cause that. Though, also this mechanism, retinoic acid maintains the function and integrity of epithelial cells and may prevent carcinogenesis. Okay? So, um, this is a cell. Okay? So, aha diha si vitamin A. Si all-trans retinoic acid is in and 9-cis retinoic acid. So, um, the all-trans retinoic acid is combined with retinoic acid receptor, and 9-cis retinoic acid is combined with retinoid X receptors. So two receptors are involved um, in detecting two ligands of retinoic acid. Okay? And once nga ma-detect na kaning mga receptors kaning retinoic acid, then pwede niya i-enhance ang gene expression. So that would help the genes to be expressed and therefore for the proteins involved to be produced. Okay? So that means if for example kulang ni siya nga mga vitamin A, then dili ma-express ang mga genes, so maunang mag-lead siya to mga malformations during pregnancy. Okay? Oh, so Ang retinol i-convert sa into retinoic acid no para magamit siya ani kay dili man pwede nga retinol or retinal ni dapat retinoic acid. Okay? Oh, so the absence of bound vitamin A usually results in the repression of gene transcription. So if wala nag-bind ang vitamin A due to deficiency sa kaniyang mga receptors, then therefore dili ma-express genes. Okay? In the epithelial cells, retinol ang usually active form. And retinol is converted to retinyl phosphate and then to mannose retinyl phosphate. So in this mechanism, vitamin A mediates the transfer of mannose to form several glycoproteins that may function in the immune system, integrity of the epithelial cells, and reproduction. So morning nganong anti-infective ang vitamin A tungod ani nga mechanism. And nganong maka-clear man siya sa skin, di ba? Maunang atong nahibawaan sukad pa elementary si vitamin A dili lang sa mata, dili lang pampalinaw ng mata but also para pampakinis, di ba? So, iyang i-maintain ang skin cells. Okay? And also, makahelp po si vitamin A sa reproduction because it promotes the binding of sperm to the egg and it also has a role in the formation of the sperm cells or spermatogenesis. Okay? I would also like to point out this, okay, kaning stages of serophthalmia. So serophthalmia is the umbrella term for vitamin A deficiency, and serophthalmia has clinical manifestations and usually naa siya staging. So naa siya uh, much less severe nga stage and then naasad siya much more severe nga stage. Okay? So ang serophthalmia nimo it can manifest first as night blindness which is coded as XS. And mag-complicate siya, mo-advance siya to the next stage, pwede siya turn into conjunctival cirrhosis which is X1A. And then Bitot spots, X1B, corneal cirrhosis, X2, corneal ulceration, one-third of the corneal surface, and um, keratomalaysia nga mas daghan og mas daghan og corneal surface nga naapektuhan. And then mo ni ang late stage sa serophthalmia, corneal scar or serophthalmic fundus. So, disclaimer lang sa mga next nga slides, medyo kuan siya. Medyo triggering siya. Okay? So, para makit-an ninyo unsay dagway ani nga mga symptoms. Okay, conjunctival cirrhosis is dryness of the conjunctiva. So, dry kaayo ang mata. Okay? And, mas advanced na siya sa night blindness, no? Okay? Next is bitot spots. So, ang bitot spots, medyo kaning na ay white lesion sa mata. Okay? Kani. And then, corneal cirrhosis with granular looking surface. Okay? Dryness gihapon. X3A is keratomalacia of less than a third of the cornea. Okay. Then if much of the cornea is affected, then that's X3B. And mauning pinaka severe, corneal scarring or serophthalmic fundus. Okay? So yeah. So that's how serophthalmia progresses. Okay? So take note of that. We also have bioequivalence. So mauni siya no nga mag-convert ta into a more standard unit of measurement because we know that vitamin A is not just a single compound but it refers to actually a group of compounds with vitamin A activity. Okay? So again, we have the retinoids, the animal or the preformed vitamin A or the animal forms of vitamin A, and we also have the plant forms of vitamin A, which are the provitamin A, and that involves your alpha, beta, and gamma carotenes and beta cryptoxanthines. So, dili man tanan nga dili man tanan nga carotenoids no kay same og degree of vitamin A activity. Naay ubang carotenes nga mas bioavailable, so therefore mas taas silang value compared to other carotenoids. And I'm talking about beta carotene. So among the carotenoids, si beta carotene ang pinaka bioactive. So that's why 2 micrograms of beta carotene are equal to 1 RAE. RAE means retinol activity equivalent. What about retinol? Since kaning retinoids mao maning active form, so therefore mao ning pinaka bioavailable. Okay, mas bioavailable ni compared to beta carotene. So that's why isa pa lang nga microgram sa retinol 1 RAE na compared sa beta carotene nga kinahanglan pa nimo dublihon ay siya ma-equivalent sa 1 microgram retinol. Okay? 2 micrograms of beta carotene given na that it is dissolved in oil or fat. But if the beta carotene is present in normal foods such as when you consume consume carrots as it is, nga wala nimo gihalo sa mga fatty dishes, then the value is 12 microgram is equal to 1 REE. Pero if ang beta carotene, for example, ang carrots giluto nimo sa for example kanang coconut oil, ginataan, then mas bioavailable na because remember kung mas fatty ba kay mas paspas ang absorption sa ADEC vitamins, di ba? But if ang carotenes is present as alpha, gamma carotenes or beta cryptoxanthin, then 24 micrograms ang need para ma-equivalent to 1 REE. Okay? So, you need to be able to, to understand this and to convert this kay maumaning naa sa mga food composition table and dapat kabalo mo sa pag-convert sa kani nga mga carotenoids to the retinol activity equivalent nga unit. Okay? So say for example, we have uh, 100 milligrams of retinol, okay, sa isa ka dish, for example, kanang meat nga ginataan, for example. So, na ay retinol diha nga 100 micrograms. So, gitan-aw lugar nimo sa food composition table, ang iyang retinol is 100. Tapos, iyang beta carotene is 200. Okay? Kaya na ay mga vegetables diha nga taas sa carotenes. And aside from that, naasad 50 nga alpha carotene, 50 nga gamma carotene, and 50 nga beta cryptoxanthin. So, i-convert na sila to RAE. Pila na ka RAE? Okay, so mao na usually ang question nako sa midterm no, sa exam. Okay. So, pila gay ito ka retinol? 100 micrograms. So, kung 100 micrograms sa retinol, so 100 sa nga RAE. So, naana tayo 100 nga RAE. Plus, pila tong beta carotene? 200. So, okay. Nag-brown out guys, no? So, ako lang ni humanon ang vitamin A. I hope wala raman siya na palong. So, pila to 200, i-divide na to sa divided by 2. Okay? Kay 2 micrograms man ang beta carotene and 1 REE. So, 200 divided by 2, so 100. So, 100 plus 100, naanatay 200 200 RAE. Okay. So nganong 2 micrograms man, di wala ta nagamit og 12 micrograms. Kay again ginataan to. So mas bioavailable siya, so mao na atong gamiton nga factor. So what about katong other nga carotenoids? Okay. So tag 50-50 no. So 50 nga alpha carotene, 50 nga gamma carotenes, and 50 nga beta cryptoxanthines. So 150. So 150 divided by 24, so i-divide na nimo to 24 para ma-convert to 1 RAE. So we have 6.25 RAE from the combined micrograms of alpha gamma carotenes and beta cryptoxanthines. So, i-total na nato to. 6.25 plus 100 nga RAE gikan sa beta carotene and 100 nga gikan sa retinol. So, that's equivalent to 206.25 RAE. Okay? So, mauna ang pag-solve, ana. Okay? So, what about kaning IU? So, dali ra na may factors. Given naman ang mga factors. So, 1 IU is equal to 0.3 micrograms of retinol, 1 IU is equals to 0.6 micrograms of beta carotene, and 1 IU is equal to 1.2 micrograms of other carotenoids. So, kabalo na mo if naay question nga 30 micrograms of retinol convert that to IU. Okay, so mauna mag-practice mo. Okay? So, ang tawag ani guys is bioequivalent. So, naay mga other nutrients, naay other vitamins nga naay mga inani. So, we have niacin for niacin activity equivalent, naay vitamin D for IU, naay vitamin E for alpha tocopherol equivalents, and folate, dietary folate equivalent. So, since the discussion sa mga reporters, so kamo na lang bahala og practice og compute ato. Okay? Okay. So, for vitamin D, um, this is what I told you earlier, no, that the vitamin A, especially in the form of retinoic acid, is associated with vitamin D. Okay. So, vitamin D, as you know, is a hormonal vitamin. That means its active form acts like a hormone in the body. So that is especially involved in calcium homeostasis. So we have this receptor called vitamin D receptor. Okay, and vitamin D receptor is associated with zinc, no, because it has this zinc fingers, which is a structure that is especially rich in zinc. So this is also one of the examples where you will see, no, the multiple interactions, the interactions of multiple nutrients. So the VDR is actually a forms a heterodimer with the receptor for retinoic acid. Okay, so in order for this in order for gene transcription to occur, um, vitamin D receptor is sometimes found with retinoic acid receptor or retinoid X receptor, and it waits, no, for vitamin D. And once there is already vitamin D, then calcitriol, which is the active form, will then bind with the vitamin D receptor, and you know that would then lead, no, to gene transcription and later on gene expression and protein synthesis. So therefore, in this example, no, we can see that vitamin A is not only involved in gene expression but also vitamin D, and they coordinate with each other. So in this example, um, vitamin D, no, needs the receptor for vitamin A in order for it to work in its role in gene transcription. Okay, so kaning vitamin D response element, this is a sequence in the in the in that gene, no, that would respond to vitamin D. So once the calcitriol binds with the receptor, then this element would be activated and would then cause for the gene to be transcribed and for the gene to be expressed. Okay. Um, Kanisha, I don't think this was not emphasized enough no in your reporting. So, but gi-discuss na ako ni siya no sa basic nutrition pa lang. But let me remind you of this one. So, if there is hypocalcemia, so that means low ang calcium levels, then the parathyroid gland would release parathyroid hormone or parathormone in order to solve that imbalance. So, what would it do? First, it would this PTH would tell the kidneys to stimulate the activation of vitamin D to calcitriol, and also to tell the kidneys to not excrete calcium or to conserve calcium. Okay, the PTH would also tell the bones not uh, to do bone resorption. So that means when you say resorption, no, from bones to the blood. So, breakdown of bones para mag-release of calcium and phosphate. Okay? And it would also tell the intestines to absorb more calcium. And that is due to the increase in calcitriol. Okay? Because remember that much of the calcium will only be absorbed if there is vitamin D, or if there is calcitriol that would tell the intestines to increase the absorption of calcium. So all of these actions would lead to um, normalization of calcium levels. So mutaas ang calcium levels, so therefore, matreat si hypocalcemia and manormalize ang calcium levels. What about if bali, if hypercalcemia or taas ang calcium levels? It's not depicted here but ako lang i-discuss. So if hypercalcemia, mugamay si parathyroid hormone and ma-activate si thyroid gland, iyang i-release si calcitonin. So calcitonin would affect all of these tissues as well. It would tell the kidneys to excrete more calcium. It would also stimulate bone deposition. So that means the bone would draw the extra calcium from the plasma to itself. And it would also tell the kidneys to decrease the activation of vitamin D so that um, not much of the calcium will be absorbed in the presence of high calcium levels. So all of these actions would contribute to the normalization, to a decrease in blood calcium and consequent normalization of calcium. So matreat ang hypercalcemia in the first place. Okay? So always remember that, ha? Kung unsa nga mga hormones ang ma-activate kung ay hypocalcemia or hypercalcemia. Okay? I think this was discussed well no, sa inyong reporting, but I will reiterate this. So, the calcitriol, which has been activated from the kidneys, will travel to the intestines and would bind to the receptor. Okay? So, ang ligand ani is the hormone of vitamin D. Then, the receptor is the vitamin D receptor. And once mag-bind ni si calcitriol with the receptor, mag-travel dayon na sila to the nucleus, and it would increase the expression of the calbindin. So, mutaas ang production sa calbindin. Calbindin is a protein. So, therefore, it's a product of a gene that is encoded for calbindin synthesis. So, mutaas si calbindin, mutaas ang calbindin production, kay mutaas man ang ma-express man ang gene for calbindin. So, yeah, that would lead to increased calbindin in the inside of the enterocyte, and more calcium is therefore absorbed thanks to increased production in calbindin and thanks um, to the binding of the active vitamin D with the receptor, which causes the increase in calcium absorption in the first place. Okay. Remember that calvin din, no, is the protein that transports calcium, no, once it is absorbed from the apical membrane. Okay, so kung walay calvin din, then mugamay ang absorption sa calcium. Okay, so that is how vitamin D affects calcium absorption. Okay, now let's proceed to vitamin E. So vitamin E is an antioxidant. Okay, it's the most potent antioxidant in the body, and it specializes uh, in neutralizing free radicals near the fatty cell membrane, because vitamin E is a fat soluble vitamin, so therefore it would only interact with the hydrophobic region of the cell, which is the interior part of the cell membrane. Okay, but vitamin E is just a member of a much more complex antioxidant system in the body um, that is very effective, no, in neutralizing free radicals, because these free radicals are a problem. Okay, free radicals are usually sourced out from foods. Kung dili sa foods, then pollution or radiation. Okay, kani mga unhealthy foods na to, grabe kay ni sila maka-produce og free radicals in the body. Free radicals are more formally known as ROS, or reactive oxygen species, in the body, and they destroy the cell membrane. They would only not destroy the cell membrane, but they also have the capacity to destroy the genes, the DNA sequence mismo nga naa sa nucleus, and that would lead to mutations and possible cancer. So that's why free radical production is associated with cancer formation. Okay? So that's why maupod na ang reason nga no maka-cancer ang mga unhealthy foods, possibly through that mechanism. Okay? So therefore these free radicals must be stopped. Okay? So thanks to vitamin E and the other members of the antioxidant system, normally kaya sa body ma-neutralize kani nga mga free radicals. Okay? Sige. First, si vitamin E, iyahang i-neutralize si lipid peroxide, which is a product of oxidation of the cell membrane caused by the free radical. Okay? So vitamin E donates electron to the lipid peroxide, and the lipid peroxide will be treated. So therefore dili na siya mahimong radical. Mao pod ni ang delikado sa free radicals, because it has the capacity to infect other healthy structures in the cell, because these free radicals are highly reactive, nga if you come in contact with the free radical, then the free radical would steal your electron, so in the process you will be oxidized and ang free radical ma-reduce. Okay, so kani sila kay mga hungry sila for electrons. Okay, grabe ilang hunger for electrons. So every time when they come in contact with, for example, with the cell membrane, so they would destroy the cell membrane by stealing electrons. And as a consequence, ang nakuhaan og electron maunang na-oxidize and maunang na-turn into another free radical. So to neutralize this lipid peroxide, si vitamin E mag-rescue ana iyang i-neutralize ang lipid peroxide. So kani nga lipid peroxide pwede ra ni ma-incorporate utro balik sa cell membrane, so ma-stop ang damage sa free radical. But tocopherol radical must be regenerated back to the reduced vitamin E, because kaning tocopherol radical, this is oxidized. Okay, this is the oxidized form. Okay, nakuhaan man siya og electron, di ba? Kay gidonate ni vitamin E ang electron niya sa lipid peroxide. So na-reduce si lipid peroxide, pero Since nakuhaan man og electron si vitamin E, siya na sad ang nahimong radical. So how do we convert it back to the reduced vitamin E? Okay, the process of reduction is when you um, when you accept electron, so you are being reduced. But if an electron is being stolen away from you, then you are in the process of being oxidized. Okay, so in this case, vitamin E um, reduces the lipid peroxide, and the lipid will be reduced, and as a consequence ma-oxidize si vitamin E. So that's why reduction and oxidation is a paired reaction, because if mag-donate ka, ma-reduce nimo ang compound, pero ikaw nga nakuhaan og electron, ma-oxidize ka. So every time you donate, ang ending ana ma-oxidize ka. Okay, so morning nahitabo kay vitamin E na oxidize siya. So naimo siyang radical. So unsaon nato ni pag-reduce ang vitamin E? Maghatag ta, mangita ta og another donor of electron. And that is where vitamin C will come into play. So vitamin C will donate its electron to the Tocopherol radical. So vitamin C reduces the radical into the reduced vitamin E, and in the process vitamin C is converted to dehydroascorbate, and dehydroascorbate is the oxidized form. Now, si vitamin C na sad ang na oxidize. So kinahanglan na sad ni siya ibalik to the reduced vitamin C. So there is another system that would do this, that would regenerate vitamin C back. Kay kaning vitamin C mao maning active form, dili man dehydroascorbate. So that system is called glutathione. Glutathione can reduce dehydroascorbate back to the reduced vitamin C, but this is with the help of glutathione peroxidase. And glutathione peroxidase needs selenium as its cofactor. And this is where selenium comes into play. Diba? Antioxidant mineral si selenium, because it's a cofactor of an enzyme that would catalyze the oxidation of glutathione. Okay? Para ma-salvage, para ma-save si vitamin C. Now, si glutathione na sad ang na-sacrifice. So, kinahanglan na sad ni siya i-save. And this is where the chain of events will be stopped. It will be stopped by NADPH. Okay? Thanks to NADPH na siya yung mga extra electrons nga kung makuhaan siya, iyang i-donate kay glutathione para ma-reduce si glutathione, nga kung makuhaan siya, okay ra. Dili ra siya mahimong ingon natong oxidize because na siya yung mga extra electrons. So, this is now the end of the chain of reactions. And by the way, in order for the NADPH to be able to donate its electron to the oxidized glutathione para mahimong reduce glutathione, na enzyme that catalyzes that, and that is glutathione reductase. So glutathione reductase needs riboflavin or vitamin B2 as its coenzyme. So, pila nga nutrients ang nag-interact para lang ma-save ang atong body from free radicals? Vitamin E, vitamin C, selenium, and vitamin B2. Diba? So, this is how antioxidants coordinate with each other to fight a common foe, which is, ROS, that can cause oxidative damage. So, maunang morning pasabot sa oxidative damage, guys, nga usually ma-read ninyo sa mga literature nga kani daw kuno oxidative damage mauning mga cause sa diabetes, cancer, obesity, and even depression. Yes, tinuod na. So, imagine if your diet is lacking in these nutrients, in these antioxidants, then maunang madaot ang atong lawas. Okay? And what is this? Kani ang mga antioxidants that can also save vitamin E. Okay? So, pwede ni siya nga substitute sa vitamin C. So, kung wala vitamin C, then pwede si flavonoids, terpenes, carotenoids, stilbenes, chalcones, and phenolic acids, which are all found from plants. So, they can also reduce tocopherol radical to the back to the reduced vitamin E. And all of these are coming from plants, which gikan sa fruits and vegetables. Diba? So, mo nang nindot yun ang diet that is rich in plants. Okay? So, this is one of the few illustrations good that made me fall in love with biochemistry because they are very coordinated and it just amazes me on um, especially on their mechanism of action no, on you know especially on fighting oxidative stress. Okay, so I hope this is also crystal clear to you. Next is vitamin K. Okay, remember that there are vitamins in most of the vitamins. No? So for vitamin K, we have three vitamins. Phyloquinone, which is derived from green plants. Menaquinone, which is derived from bacteria and from animals. And menadione is the synthetic form. Now, you know that the function of vitamin K is blood coagulation. So, this is so in this particular topic we are going to discuss now how in particular does blood coagulation proceed with the help of vitamin K. Okay, so the main mechanism is carboxylation of glutamic acid residues in vitamin K dependent protein, clot factors. So, ang chemical reaction no, that vitamin K does para ma-activate ni nga mga proteins is carboxylation. And these proteins need to be carboxylated para mahimo silang active form, para ma-activate sila. And these proteins are called clot factors. So, these factors are needed para makaproduce ta og solid clot which can stop bleeding. Okay? So, imagine if we don't have vitamin K, then we don't have the mechanism to actually stop the bleeding and we would die if magsige na lang yung tag-bleed. So, thanks to vitamin K, it it does the carboxylation of these proteins and coagulation would be possible. So these are the clot factors that are vitamin K dependent. Therefore, they need to be carboxylated by vitamin K para may mo silang active. And eventually, para makaproduce og solid clot that can stop the bleeding. Kani. There are also other proteins that also need vitamin K like osteocalcin. Osteocalcin is a very important protein that is involved in bone formation. So, so therefore, vitamin K also functions in bone development, in bone formation. Because without vitamin K, osteocalcin will not be activated and bone formation would be reduced. So, just like vitamin D, vitamin K is also needed in bone formation. So for example, prothrombin has 10 glutamic acid residues that are carboxylated by vitamin K, producing gamma carboxyglutamic acid residues and activating the protein. So glutamic acid residues in the prothrombin protein. Then at these sites, butangan dayon na ni vitamin K o carboxylic group. Asa ang carboxylic group kani? Kani. So kana gikan na siya sa vitamin K. Okay? So once nga matagaan siya carboxyl group, so ma-activate si protein. So therefore ma-activate si prothrombin. So mahimo na siyang thrombin. Thrombin is the active form of prothrombin. And thanks to the carboxyl group that came from vitamin K na activate siya. Okay? So very simple, di ba? Iyaha lang butangan og carboxyl group ang mga glutamic acid residues nga naa sa protein. Okay? So this is the pictorial summary no, of the coagulation cascade that would eventually lead to formation of cross-link fibrin clot, and this is really the thing no, that would stop the bleeding. Okay? Then maupod ni ang mag-form into kanang kuan good, kanang di ba nasamad ka ana, tapos kanang ma-form nga murag kugan. Kugan man na siya sa Ilonggo no. Yeah, kanang ma-form bitaw nga solid nga brown, okay, nga kanang indicator pud nga na heal na ang wound. So mao na ang final product sa coagulation cascade. And remember katong mga proteins, katong mga clot factors that are involved in the coagulation cascade. So we have factor 2, 7, 9, of 10. 2, 7, 9, and 10. So factor 2 aha. Kani si factor 2 is actually si prothrombin. So diri mo act si vitamin K no, magatag siya carboxyl group para si prothrombin mahimong thrombin. So pa 7 kani. So para ma-active si factor 7 kinahanglan og vitamin K. 9 asa si 9 diri. Factor 9 kani. So kani kinahanglan gyapon ni og vitamin K and factor 10. Factor 10 is eventually needed in the conversion of prothrombin to thrombin. So therefore, if sa sugod pa lang kulang na og vitamin K, then this cascade would not proceed. And definitely, this cross-linked fibrin clot would not be produced. So, possible nga ang bleeding would just, continue to go on, and that would be fatal. Diba? So, sa bones, si osteocalcin ang gina-activate ni vitamin K. Okay? This one shows how vitamin K is recycled in the body. So, vitamin K quinone in the form of phyloquinone or menaquinone, there is an enzyme that would reduce it and turn it into hydroquinone. And hydroquinone is now the active form needed for protein carboxylation. And hydroquinone would then donate its carboxyl group to the glutamic acid residues in the vitamin K dependent proteins, and in turn hydroquinone would become vitamin K 2,3 epoxide, and there is an enzyme that would regenerate it back to the quinone form. So it's just a cycle. Now, what is this? Proposed sites of warfarin action. Warfarin is an anticoagulant drug. That means it antagonizes the coagulation, and this is administered when a certain patient is at risk of clotting. Okay? Usually kanang mga stroke patients, no? Kung first time nila na stroke, mas taas ilang chance nga magka-stroke again. So usually ginatagaan na sila warfarin ana para ma-prevent ang another clotting episodes. So how does warfarin does its job? Kani warfarin reduces the activity of epoxide reductase and quinone reductase. So therefore, dili magamit ang vitamin K kay dili man siya ma-convert into hydroquinone. Kay hydroquinone naman ang form nga magamit sa body. Okay? So, kaning nga drug iyahang i-destroy kaning mga enzymes para dili magamit si vitamin K. So therefore, dili ma-promote ang coagulation. Mo gamay ang clotting. So that's it. 'Di ba? So, I hope you understand that. Okay.